Hey guys, Dylan from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you My Hero Academia Chapter 293 read-through. Now, before we get started, I just want to say I'm actually recording this while it's daytime, because I'm going to be busy all weekend, and so I need to wake up early on Saturday rather than staying up really late on Friday. So if my voice sounds like I'm tired or anything, that's most likely the case. This chapter starts up with a single frame of Eri munching on a biscuit before it shows a full body frame of Mirio. And Deku asks, "Lemillion, how are you here?" "The mounted team contacted me, so I came as fast as I could." Yeah, I'm not going to try voices, I'm still waking up. "The mounted team contacted me as fast as I could, so I came here using permeation. Turns out Sir Night-Eye's agency was closer to the villain's hideout than expected." And then it's got the future Deku context bubbles that say, "Back from hiatus after only half a year. You'd never think he was gone to begin with." And it flashes back to tell us how Mirio got his power back. We are back at UA before the war started, and Mirio says, "Bubble Girl let me know in advance that there will be a nationwide sweep operation taking place tomorrow. I want to be a part of this." We see that Mirio is sitting with Tamaki across from Midoriya, Sue, Aizawa, Uraraka, Nejire, and Eri, who we notice her horn is a considerable size, yet in all other panels we've seen of her during this war arc, it's tiny, which led many to believe that Eri had used her power recently, which is true. He continues on with, "I've closely observed Eri's progress in mastering her quirk over the past 2 months, training her abilities on insects and lizards." And we see a little image of a lizard who had dropped its tail being reverted back to a state in which it had its tail. "Eri-chan, I'm sorry if it feels like I'm using you just for your quirk, but could you please test your rewind on me?" Mirio bows his head and looks at the ground with his eyes closed, and Eri turns back to Aizawa, who just gives her a nod, and so she puts her hands on the sides of Mirio's cheeks and says, "Don't apologize. This is what I trained for after all." "Thank you, Eri-chan." And it cuts back to the battlefield where the winged Nomu is shooting 3 projectiles towards Mirio, but obviously he can just phase through them. "Despite this, it's not like I've got the power to take all these Nomus out in one shot." And we see that all of the high-ends, they've recovered from Mirio's initial surprise attack and are all charging towards him. And he says, "Somebody back me up." And that's when he notices a twinkle behind him. And someone says, "Use the blasts from before. They were different from my usual ones, bursting out behind my back like that. Explosions that were fast and powerful. That sensation I felt for the first time. That sense of emergency I felt at the brink of death." And it shows that Bakugo, using the same quickfire technique he used to save Midoriya from the force quirk activation tendrils, he's using them to reach where his mentor is to protect him. The final thing that Bakugo thinks is, I have to save them. As we see a full page spread of several heroes arriving to take out the high end. We see Bakugo taking the one with the bone plates and spikes on its arm out with his explosions. Ida manages to take out the flying Nomu, the one that was shooting the projectiles, and Nejire, she's back up and fighting already, and she sends 2 different beams to take out the other ones. Ida thinks, wait, Bakugo-kun, I told you to stay put. You're going to get yourself killed. Mirio says, Nejire-chan, are you alright? And she replies, now that you're here, Tagata, I'm fine. Amazing, huh? Best Genius then notices that his newest apprentice is on the scene again and says, have you returned from the world of the dead, Bakugo? That was just a placeholder name. I was saving the real deal for you. He thinks back on what Best Genius told him. Your hero name is supposed to inspire hope. You do not yet see the world in that context. Once you return to my agency next year, I will hear your name out. And he says, from now on, call me God of Explosive Destruction, Dynamite. And we get 6 reaction panels. Best Genius thinks it's another dud. Ida thinks it's too long. Nejire thinks it's chaotic. Mr. Compressed thinks it's tacky. Spinner thinks it's kind of cool. And Mirio, he just laughs at it. Now, I wouldn't exactly call this another dud. Or really too long. Because, well, the God of Explosive Destruction part is basically Bakugo's equivalent of, say, the rainy season hero, or the everything hero, or the whatever, like the fiber hero, or whatever the other heroes use as their personal heroic descriptor. So rather than saying the something hero, he's calling himself the God of Explosive Destruction. And where his actual hero name is Dynamite, which is spelled Dynamight. Now I don't think that's how you actually spell dynamite. I think it's M-I-T-E. Hang on, I'll just check. I was correct. Dynamite is D-Y-N-A-M-I-T-E. So it's very obvious that part of his name is, well, it's based off his quirk and his personality, that being it being the word dynamite. Yet the second half of it, where could he have gotten that spelling from? It's not like he's basically All Might's second biggest fan, and while I still personally prefer either Ground Zero or Kachan, I can understand and appreciate the thought that went into giving him this name. We see Mirio landing next to a gracefully landing Bakugo, and Mirio says, "That's a good hero name. It's pretty funny." It's not meant to be funny. Without joy and laughter to balance the sorrow, the world can never hope to have a bright future. My bad there, that's just my motto. Now, as long as the final boss is restricted in place, it's time to clean up the rest of this mess. And as he's saying this, it zooms out to show the full spread of what's happening to scale, and we see that Gigantomachia has grown massive once again, and is still straining against the fibers binding him. Machinist, who up until this panel I hadn't noticed was actually standing on one of these cables, and you see the students fighting the Hyans. It then zooms back in to a different couple of people fighting. We see that Darby has embraced Shoto within his flames. He's literally hugging him to his body while his flames are active, and says, "Looks like they're having fun over there. Even though you're in such agony, how pitiable." Shoto says, "But your body, it'll burn. You've grown up to be so considerate. I'm happy for you, little bro. In fact, I'm overjoyed right now. Look at that face. Even when his masterpiece, his greatest doll, is about to perish by his failure's flames. Hey, take a look. He's totally broken." And it's true. It cuts over to where Endeavor is standing, and he's been in this exact same position for, 4 or 5 chapters now? It then zooms back into Darby's face as, we can see parts of him are starting to burn up. He says, "Shoto, if you burn up in my flames, I wonder what kind of face dear old dad will be making then." But before Shoto can actually suffer any burns, some tendrils cut between the two of them, knocking Darby back and releasing Shoto from his grip. Where could these tendrils have come from? We're quickly shown as it shows us an image of Midoriya. He's on the ground with the tendril coming out of him. He thinks Genius has got others to support him. Just wait, Todoroki-kun. Even if I don't have the strength in my arms or legs. And he thinks Froppy style, as it shows that the tendrils of Black Whip that he's producing, he's actually shooting them from his mouth, like Tsuyu does her tongue. Darby decides to fire down the tendrils and says, "Don't you know it's rude to meddle in others' family affairs? I'm meddling because Todoroki-kun is a precious friend, and Endeavor is a mentor who made me stronger. You're right, the past doesn't just disappear. That's why the present Endeavor is making an effort. That's the Endeavor I'm watching. You are not Endeavor." And this resonates with Endeavor, and it shocks him because he heard similar words from Midoriya way back during the sports festival, where he's like, "I'm not All Might. That's obvious. Todoroki-kun isn't you." And I just think it's great that Midoriya is still being the only person who's able to use his words to get through to the Todorokis. He's basically pulling the same card all 3 times this happens with, "It's your power, Todoroki, not your dad's. Todoroki-kun isn't you, Endeavor. And Darby, your flames, you are not Endeavor. This isn't on him." Darby, the words don't reach him, at least their true meaning, and because, he still sees Endeavor as the villain here, and says, "Anyone can figure out that I'm not Endeavor, but don't you pity the likes of me at least? The consequences of the sins committed by a supposed apostle of justice? That's what I am. Evil will no longer prosper. Justice will crumble. All I've done is show all those susceptible people where to put the blame." Now, it's interesting to see that he says evil will no longer prosper, because that does reinforce the fact that he doesn't see himself as evil. He sees the heroes like Endeavor as evil. And as he finishes his speech with, "Now the future that awaits is clear. All the lip service and ego stroking will vanish and it will be chaos," we see that Markia has finally managed to break through the binds from Best Jeanist. And Mirio also notices. He says, "We've got big trouble." And Best Jeanist thinks he's restored. But Markia, he doesn't even get to fully untangle himself from the bindings before being shoryukened by a flaming figure, who we find out is Endeavor. Markia, he's equally surprised as I was when I saw this panel, but not from the fact that Endeavor is up and fighting again. No, he's shocked at the fact that he's feeling numb. He can't move anymore. And he collapses back to the ground and thinks, "My strength." Mirio comments when he sees what's actually happening with Markia and says, "There was a message from the mounted team. They said they didn't notice any effects, but the anesthetic worked." And it cuts back to show those who were in mounted team as being Kirishima, Mina, Momo, and I can't tell if that's another student or a hero, because it's got a helmet that could be Mudman, or one of the other 1B students could just be a generic hero. And it shows that the students, at least from 1A, are still fine. And well, that's where the chapter ends. I just want to say that this had some good scenes. It's not as eventful as I thought it would be leading into from last chapter, but there's still chance for more action to build from this. But yeah, I really liked this because it confirms things that people were stipulating about from the last chapter. It is, Eri definitely used her power on Mirio. Not that long ago, by the way, only a day ago, because he says that the war will be happening tomorrow. Which, honestly, I also didn't think that most of the overhaul students would be there, barring Kirishima. I thought maybe it would be Mirio, Tamaki, and Nejire with Aizawa and Eri, but I am glad to see that they included Tsuyu, Uraraka, and Midori as well. And I am glad that Mirio didn't wipe out the Hyans in just that one punch. Because, I mean, if he had managed to get the brains of them, he could have very easily, but that would have just been a complete anticlimactic scene. And I also like that we see Bakugo, even though it only happened what could be a couple minutes ago in his time, he's already reflecting and commenting on the fact that his body, this new feeling, the desire to protect Midoriya, the sense of emergency, it's already kicking back in. And he understands that that is his hero instinct telling him to save people. yeah, it's also nice to see that Nezare isn't in fact wounded very much from Darby's blast. I've already commented on Bakugo's hero name, but I've also commented on the Todoroki scene, but like in the last chapter, the people who did the translation for this chapter, they slipped in a little edit that isn't actually from the chapter, which is where Midoriya says Floppy style by launching the Black Whip tongue. They've said, don't put this in a doujin, as in Midoriya's begging the people he's telling the story to not to put it in a doujin. But honestly, I'm also glad that Makia, he's now seemingly down for the count, because let's be honest, if he wasn't bound up, then there was no way the heroes would be able to take him out. And I like that, again, like I said, Midoriya is the one to get through to a Todoroki to make them see sense. And I do like the callback saying, oh, you are not the same as the person you are being compared to, or comparing yourself to. And that is what's used to break Endeavor out of his shock, make him realize that, sure, I may have done some shit things in the past, and that may have been the catalyst to what Darby has become, but Darby, his actions are his own. And yeah, that's so far, and I'm glad this is happening. Every chapter is ending with me saying, I really love this chapter. So if that keeps happening, then, well, I'm going to keep doing these videos. I mean, I'm going to keep doing them anyway, but I just hope that after this war arc, we don't have like another, say, overhaul arc, which is just very slow to pick up until it gets to the latter half. Then it's just quickfire, quickfire, quickfire. Because on one hand, that would be quite disappointing after such an intense chapter. On the other hand, A, they need to slow down the story a little after this, and B, I might be more used to reading this to actually enjoy a similar arc in the future. I really should go back and reread the overhaul arc, see if I'm still as critical of it as I am looking back on it, but whether I actually do that is a different story. Anyway, I gotta get this editing, so I'll catch you in the next one.